Hello everyone. So now again we are gathered here to have an eye on the another video of our subject English as a first language for class 12th for both science and commerce stream. We had completed our first chapter, that was the last lesson written by Mr. Doddett. As I had told you before, that you have to remember the name of the author. It's a mandatory thing. You have to remember it, and you have to remember the name of the chapter. Make sure you do your homework. I had already given you homework in my previous session. What was the homework? It was not so hard. It's just like comprehension. You have to find the answers of the questions and you have to write it in your copy. Now let us move forward. Now we shall be starting our second chapter, and the name of the chapter I have already written on the board, that is The Lost Spring. Is written by Anish Jung, and it is one of the stories taken from the book called The Stories from Lost Childhood, as it is written clearly on the board. Now this chapter, if you ask me, is a fantastic chapter. I would rather say that, because this situation, what is depicted in this chapter, is the same situation that you really see around you when you go out. When you go out, you might be surrounded by a bunch of people doing these sort of activities which this chapter is concentrating on. Means you would be aware of what I would be explaining you, and it would be very easy for you to understand this chapter, as it would be very easy to imagine the picture what our writer Anish Jung wants to convey. Okay, make sure when I am explaining you, you can open the textbook, and when I'm explaining you, make sure you create the image in your head, so it would be very easy for you to understand. And once you understand the chapter, the only thing that you have to do is to answer the question. And when you answer any of the questions, make sure do not just write anything that you like. You have to answer to the point. You have to write the answer only of certain things which are asked in the question. Do not just go on and write one page answer. It does not make any sense. Okay, so again let me repeat myself. When you write the answers of the questions, first you have to write the name of the chapter and it's written by who. It would easily give you 1 mark. No matter if a question is asked for 2 marks, you would be easily getting 1 mark if you write the name of the chapter and the author. Okay, so now without wasting any time, let us start our chapter. So before I start the story, let us look at the introduction of Anish Jung. Okay, I think she's still alive, okay? She is still alive. Now, she was born in Rourkela and spent her childhood and adolescence in Hyderabad. She received her education in Hyderabad and in the United States of America. Her parents were both writers. Now, she began her career as a writer in India. She has been an editor and columnist for major newspapers in India and abroad and has authored several books. The following is an excerpt from her book titled Lost Spring Stories of Stolen Childhood. Here she analyzes the grinding poverty and traditions which condemn these children to a life of exploitation. To a life of exploitation. Now, judging the chapter by the name given here, lost childhood, means you can imagine. Okay, so in your vicinity, you might be aware about these children working at tea stall or working at any shop or might be working in a hardware store or might be carrying goods from one place to another in his cart or any sort of activities that's a finance is involved in it. So actually a person should be above 18, I think, so it won't be illegal, otherwise it is considered as a child labor. You are very well aware about that thing. Apart from these all people, you might be also familiar with rag pickers. You might be familiar with rag pickers. So these people might be searching garbage all the time, hoping that they might get a gold coin inside the garbage. Who knows? You never know. You can even find a golden ring, or it can be a golden bangles. Who knows? We don't know. So these people, when they do these sort of things, this rag picking, they always expect to get a thing like that, because it is because of those things their hopes are still alive. Their hopes are still alive. It's because of these all thoughts that come into their mind. Okay, so this is kind of a outline of the story, or I would rather say that in our story there would be something like those sort of things which I explained you. Okay. Now just recall about Anish Chang. Just I'm giving you 2 minutes. Just remember the name of the chapter and the name of the author. Just remember it right now. Afterwards we shall begin our chapter. It's a fun chapter actually. It's a fun chapter. You might love it. Alright, I hope you have remembered, okay? Lost Spring, written by Anish Chand. Let us move further with our chapter. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Now, this statement is spoken by a boy, who is a rag picker. Rag picker is that person who looks out in the garbage. Never know, he might find something interesting. Why do you do this? Ayag Sahib, whom I encounter every morning scrounging for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. Sahib left his home long ago, set amidst the green fields of Dhaka. His home is not even a distant memory. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes. His mother tells him that's why they left, looking for gold in the big city where he now lives. So we can imagine, like, our author might be, not might be, she would be living in a house, of course. So in the vicinity of her house, she might be looking him every day. And what's the name of the boy that is depicted in the first paragraph? That's a Sahib. Sahib is his name. So of course our author seems to be a very kind person. So our author might have talked with Sahib. So she came to know that Sahib is from Dhaka. Okay, so I think Dhaka is a capital city of Bangladesh, okay, which is our neighboring country. And apart from that information, one another information is also clearly mentioned in the paragraph, that there were many storms or heavy rainfall had came that had washed away their fields. So because of all reasons, there might be a number of reasons, we just don't know about them, but just take it like it was a severe problem. So that is the reason they left there at Dhaka, Bangladesh, and now they are in this city. Up till now we do not know in which city they are, but we just know that they are in the big city. They are in the big city, and the people like Sahib, they are looking for the gold in the garbage dumps. Let us move further. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. Go to school, I say glibly, realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. Of course, so this is a conversation between our author and our hero, that is Sahib. So she told him, why can't you go to school or something like that? Then he, the answer that he gave was a kind of, what kind of answer it was? We haven't reached there, okay? Just concentrate. We haven't reached there. It is just written here that, go to school, I say glibly, realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. But actually it is indirectly, it is mentioned here that if author would be saying Sahib to go to school, I don't think Sahib would be affected by that advice, go to school. It's a kind of a hollow advice. Let's move further. And he even added that he had nothing else to do. So our author might be giving him some options. He might change. Let's see what happens. There is no school in my neighborhood. Why they built one, I will go. When they built one, I will go. Okay, so that was the answer given by Sahib to our author. So what was the answer? He gave it, like he told that there weren't any school in the neighborhood. I might be talking about government school, who knows? For that, we have to talk to Saib, okay? So, yeah, you can just imagine in that sort of way, it would be easy for us. So, he told that there aren't any school in his neighborhood, and he even added that he would be going to school if the construction starts, then construction ends, then school opens, and then he will go to the school. So I think it would take a long time, I would say several decades. In by that meantime, the Sahib would be no longer a boy, he would be a man actually. So I think that's quite impossible. It's a hollow thing as it is mentioned before. If I start a school, will you come? I ask, half joking. Yes, the author is saying that if I start a school, would you be coming? Then obviously he might, or he would say yes. Let's just read. I think his answer should be positive. Yes, he says, smiling broadly. A few days later, I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? It takes longer to build a school, I say, embarrassed at having made a promise that was not meant. But promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world. So after a few days, he might have met our author again, and he asked the question to Anish that, is your school ready? If your school's ready, then I would be joining your school soon. Okay, so I think that's kind of a promise that you just can't keep it. Let's read further. After months of knowing him, I ask him his name. Saib Alam, he announces. He does not know what it means. If he knew its meaning, a lord of the universe, he would have a hard time believing it. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the streets with his friends, an army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. Over the months, I have come to recognize each of them. So he might be having his army, okay, he might be having his gang. So author is saying that author might be looking at that army every day, and it's even said in the paragraph that they were barefoot means they were not wearing any kinds of footwear or shoes, okay, they were not wearing it. And our author even came to know about his real name. His real name is Saib Alam. Okay, it is Saib Alam, but I don't think our boy would be knowing the name, the meaning of his name. He would not be knowing that, but she knows because I think she is a writer, so she would be knowing the name. Actually, the meanings of the name. Each and every name has a meaning, okay? I think Saib Alam, okay, so the origin of this word might be Urdu or Arabic, okay? So she knows that. Okay, so now let's just move further, okay? And they have even added that, they means I mean to say our author has even added that those people or that army, they would be coming in the morning, taking the garbage dumps every day, every single day, and they would be disappearing at noon time because I think during that time they would be feeling hungry, so they would be going to their respective homes. Let's just move further. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I ask one. My mother did not bring them down from the shelf, he answered simply. See, according to my point of view, if you give any advice to any of those people, then I don't think they would be believing you, or they would do whatever you say. Okay, it's just you cannot change the mentality of any person in the world, remember that. And I would even add that each person and every person has a right to do whatever she or he wants. You cannot force anyone. Okay, remember that. Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another, who is wearing shoes that do not match. Okay, so one of his gang members, he is wearing the shoes, and those, so I think we have two legs. How many legs do we have? Two. Okay, so I think we have to wear two shoes. Okay, and they should be identical. Those two shoes should be identical, but in his case those two shoes, they were too different from one another. He might have find one from somewhere else and one from another, and those two shoes might be fitting him well, so I guess that is the reason why he was wearing the shoes. Okay, when I comment on it, he shuffles his feet and says nothing. I want shoes, says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot in cities on village roads. It is not lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. See, perpetual state of poverty, you can say that it's a never ending state of poverty, okay? And considering the barefoot, I would say that it might be a tradition for them, or what is that, I don't know. But it seems like if one is not wearing any kinds of footwear or shoes, others would be copying. Okay, others would be copying him or copying them, whatever be the situation. But it's just like we can understand that they do not like to wear shoes or footwear. Just okay, it's good to roam with a barefoot. Okay, for someone it would be a brand new idea, but for someone it might be not. Yeah, just have an eye on it. I'm giving you 2 minutes. Afterwards we shall continue. I hope you are getting the clear picture of what it's explained in the chapter. Okay, let us just move further. And remember, okay, underline this perpetual state of poverty. It can be asked as a question like rectify the idiom. Okay, and you can even see the nice pictures. Okay, you can see the vest. One is wearing shorts. They are too short. One is wearing 3/4. Okay, it's very interesting. It's intriguing picture. Let's move further. I remember a story a man from UDP once told me. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. Okay, so now here we would be knowing the story of another man. Okay, now the story of Sai, just keep that aside. Okay, now we are in another story. Okay, like a story of a man. Now, as it is told here, as a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. Okay, so he might be going to the school as it is mentioned here, and it would be in the vicinity of that old temple, and in that temple his father was working as a priest. You can easily understand that, you don't need any explanation for this. Now the interesting thing is like every day he would be holding at the temple and he would be asking God to give him a pair of shoes. Okay, let's move further. 30 years later, I visited his town and the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. In the backyard where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. Look at the boy. I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddesses when he had finally got a pair of shoes. So she arrived at the same place after how many years? After 30 years. Okay, after 3 decades, she came back at the same place. So there were a few changes as it is clearly mentioned here. There was another priest, and apart from the priest there were a few plastic chairs, red and white, and at that time there was a young boy. I think this young boy might be the son of that boy who was praying to get the pair of shoes 30 years ago. It can be, okay, it's my assumption. Let's see what is there inside. Okay, so we can see that the young boy who got the pair of shoes, he's in the uniform. Okay, so indirectly it is mentioned that God finally listened to his prayers. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddesses where he had finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose them, the goddesses had granted his prayer. A young boy like the son of the priest now wore shoes, but many others like the rag pickers in my neighborhood remained shoeless. So as it is depicted in the paragraph, he is saying that there can be few changes in the society, as it is stated that the priest's son now he's wearing shoes. However, that wasn't the same for the gang of rag pickers. Those people, rag pickers, those children, they were still shoeless. They were still shoeless. And rest we shall be continuing in upcoming session. It's a quite lengthy chapter, I think. Okay. Just have an eye on it and try to recapitulate everything what I wanted you to understand this chapter, and make sure that you create the pictures in your head of what's being told in the chapter. Okay, create the pictures in your head. The story is not so hard. Okay, so it would be very easy for you to make the pictures in your head and let those pictures be in your head permanently. Okay, so thank you.